The lights go out, away they go. A brilliant start made by Felvus. Joel Laskell slotted to second, Jay Warren third, so it's grid order at the moment. And that was Elliot Altonaires trying to find a gap up the inside. Out of Old Hall Corner they go, single file though. Felvus leads the way, Joel Laskell in second position. And already, Jack, Kyle's starting to make a break. There's one off further back, and that is Andy Dorman. No, Andy Dorman, after a great qualifying effort, is in the barriers already.
Yeah, that's a shame for Andy, isn't it? He was one of the 4 drivers. I think that was right in that thick, or 5 drivers even right in the thick of the Subway sandwich. But just like an overstuffed Subway, always a meatball drops out, doesn't it? Unfortunately, there's too many cars on a one-bite piece of track. So we've got 4, luckily, and we've got the rest of the field as well. I think only Andy Dorman is a bit of a victim with that opening lap carnage.
I'm really looking forward to see how far this sandwich analogy will
go. I'm
the
stretching it out.
Elvis leads them over the hill, with Joel Lass doing his best to go with him. Jay Warren, not for the first time this season, struggling on cold tyres. It does take him a lap or 2 just to get fully up to speed. There they go through Knickerbrook, and full commitment from Joel Lask. Would you expect anything less, really? That means that he closes right in on Felvis's tail as they head over Clay Hill and up towards the double apex right-hander at Druids Corner. Great camera view there as they come into sight and nail both apexes actually for the top 2. Warren dropping back there in third, with Dalton Ayres and Nicky Taylor now stacked up behind him. Josh Martin sits in 6th position, with Andy Carroll, Craig Curtis, Ethan Hill and Paul Laramie completing the top 10, because look, Laramie has got himself ahead of Ben Smith. Now that's a bit of a turn up for the books, Jack.
Really impressive, especially on the opening lap. I wonder what happened to Ben Smith. Did he get caught up with some GT3 action? Did he just not get off the line? He maybe caused the victim of starting uphill and maybe didn't get his clutch properly in. It's something that maybe we'll be able to speak to him afterwards, because frankly we're running out of things to ask him. So it's at least a bit of a talking point for us. But Jay Warren, as we look back at the championship, if he does become a runner-up here in the GT3 class at the end of the season, will we potentially be looking back and thinking the cold tyre, sort of those 1 or 2 laps, trying to get those tyres up to temperature, is that potentially what's going to cost him? Because he has given Carl Felvers a massive lead, as well as Joel Lask, but we're talking championship. He's given Carl Felvers a massive lead here. It's going to be very hard to catch up.
Yeah, exactly. He's 1.6 seconds behind Lask, who is half a second adrift to Felvers. So yeah, he's over 2 seconds shy of the race leader at the moment. There they go. Look down the hill. Carl Felvers continues to lead the way. That was a change for third place, though. Well, we said we wouldn't see any moves into Knickerbrook Corner. Already that proven wrong. Elliot Dalton Ayres up ahead of Jay Warren. Didn't exactly see how that started. It could be that Jay had a slightly suboptimal run out of the Britain chicane, but either way, by the time they come out of Knickerbrook, he's down into 4th place. So Dalton Ayres breaks into 3rd. Nicky Taylor there drifts wide out of Druids, and that's that crest that I mentioned on the hot lap there, Jack, in a rear-engined car with no weight over that front axle. So easy to understeer wide over some of these crests.
It is, and the thing is, you want to sort of correct that understeer, as you're going into it, and all of a sudden you have a massive oversteer correction, don't you? And it's really difficult. It's a delicate balancing act. These cars are so hard to drive. I think we sort of take it for granted somewhat, but I think most of us, if we're watching and then we jumped in the sim ourselves, we'd be getting nowhere near the times that these guys are getting for at least 200 laps around a circuit like this, because it is so difficult. And obviously, the mod that we're using for Alton Park, they've driven a lot, but not the Knickerbrook version. That's why Kyle Felvers was coming in surprised, or shall we say, descriptive of the Knickerbrook entry, and obviously his dislike for it. But to be fair, I think if you went through Knickerbrook in real life there that quickly, you'd probably end up going skyward as well, mainly because of the barriers that are in the way.
Well, indeed. So that bump does genuinely exist. It is a real thing, and going over it at this speed is not ideal. Now, this might not be good news for Carl Felvers, because Joel Lask has closed right in, going into the part of the circuit that Kyle has told us he's struggling with. Joel Lask, we've seen already, is full of bravery through Knickerbrook Corner, but he was, if anything, a bit too close there, really, to Felvers. Maybe lost a bit of downforce on the nose of the car, just couldn't quite commit to the corner as he'd have wanted, and so Felvers regains that margin again, heading over Clay Hill. Out of Druids Corner they go, though. These two, the class of the field, really. Elliot Dalton Ayres doing his best to go after them, but so far, not quite able to match their pace.
No, but he is dropping Jay Warren, isn't he? So we can say that it's cold tyres potentially, but that's not an excuse anymore. We're 5 minutes into this one nearly, and all the tyres will be right up to temperature. Everyone will be into the groove. Paul Laramie goes wide and loses the lead to Ben Smith, just as we're about to say potentially he's doing so well, but I think he's about to lose it. At least we saw this overtake this time, Andy, as they go into the final corner. It is Ben Smith who retakes the lead, but Paul Laramie's not lying down with this one.
No, you're going to try and get the switch back, but didn't quite have the momentum over the hill. So Ben Smith takes advantage of that little mistake, then goes through. Laramie closes right in through Old Hall Corner. It is a very late apex that you take at Old Hall Corner, so it does leave that inviting gap on the inside, but Laramie wasn't quite able to fill that gap, and now he misses the apex at Cascades, and that will lose him momentum down the Lakeside Straight. So Ben Smith goes back to the lead of the Cayman class. Meanwhile, back at the head of the field, Carl Felver still under threat here for Joel Last. Joel Last can get close, but I really only see a mistake changing this now. Now, a mistake could come from Felvis. It's not unheard of, but right now, Joel Lask, I think, is finding out just how difficult it is to find a way through here.
Yeah, it's well, he's going to have to be inventive, isn't he? He's going to have to think outside the box, as most people do when they come to Walton Park, or force Carl Felvis into a massive mistake. Now, Kyle is driving at Vallelunga anyway. He was telling us about this, like he's just trying to score the points. He's not going to be shaken out of anything. He's not going to be riled up to go for a ridiculous move or a stupid defensive position. Andy Dorman recovering there, going through Ben Smith. But is that Paul Laramie potentially trying to take advantage of it? No, not quite close enough. So, yeah, Joel Last's going to have to be inventive. He's going to have to do it. And I think the idea of potentially trying to pressure Kyle Felvis into some kind of battle is not going to work. If Kyle Felvis thinks he's not faster, he potentially will just sort of say, okay, you take the position. We're still over a second and a half clear of Elliot Dalton-Ayres.
How did that happen? Laramie being waved through seemingly by Ben Smith, and then I think he was so shocked about it that he threw it away too. So Laramie goes back to the lead of the Cayman class. Ben Smith is already snapping at his heels to try and get the place back. I have no idea what that was all about. Laramie's wide though, and he's off the road altogether now. Ben Smith goes back through, and Laramie bouncing down the grass. That was a truly bizarre turn of events. Ben Smith gets himself back into the class lead. I can only assume, Jack, and it is an assumption that they've had some contact somewhere earlier on, maybe when Smith initially moved ahead of Laramie, and Ben has decided to, in an attempt to avoid a penalty, give the place back. But actually, Laramie's come out of that even worse second time round.
Yes, it's a strange one, to be honest. Maybe something we could talk to them about afterwards as well. There's quite a few talking points in the GT4s actually now all of a sudden, which is really rather a relief, to be honest, because I was going to ask him whether he did jam or cream first on his scones. So yeah, it's quite nice. But Joel Lask here trying his best, but he's still got about 17 minutes to go, Andy. There's no rush, is there? But Elliot Dalton-Ayres seems to be catching up. I'm just going to have a look at the times, actually, and see. Nikki Taylor's just gone purple in Sector 2. Elliot Dalton-Ayres on the previous lap was about half a second quicker than the two leaders.
Yes, so what's going on here then? Is Felvis's pace starting to desert him? Remember, he is the heaviest car on the grid within the GT3 class. He's running 45 kilos of success ballast. Joel Lask in second place, carrying only 20 kilos, and Elliot Dalton-Ayres only 15. So it stands to reason, doesn't it, that Carl Felvis may be struggling for pace because of the weight, and of course, that will affect his long-run pace. They're both a bit deep into the shell hairpin, but that camber really catches you if you do that, so you can get away with it. But yeah, you can visibly see now that gap between the top three closing. In fact, Elliot Dalton-Ayres in the same shot now as these two, and Felvis is sideways out of the Britain chicane. I wonder if he's maybe overusing his tyres a bit to try and get these lap times out of a car that is carrying so much weight.
Yeah, well, that's going to be something we're probably going to see within the last 5 minutes really affect them. But Joel Lask absolutely launching it over that little bump as Nicky Taylor gets past Jay Warren as well. So Jay Warren really struggling here. He's running up currently in the championship, but he may well get overtaken by Josh Martin, who's going to go up the inside of Druids, and a lovely little move there. It's gone from bad to worse this lap by Jay Warren.
Yeah, it has, down to 6th place now, so Jay Warren, I think, was in 6th, wasn't he, before he made that late improvement in qualifying, so maybe that was a bit of a blip, and this is now his genuine pace. Look at this, though. Joel Lask almost pushing Carl Felvis across the line. He's going to look to the inside line, and Old Hall Corner commits to the manoeuvre, and Carl Felvis might have to leave the door open. He does. He's out wide over the curb, but thankfully they managed to avoid contact. This is the big advantage, though, Jack, I think, that Joel Lask has got in this battle, because Kyle Felvis cannot afford, realistically, to get turned around here. So if Lask really commits to a lunge, safe in the knowledge, of course, that it's only his teammate behind him as well, Carl Felvis might have no choice, really, but to move aside.
Well, the problem is, earlier in the race, I'd have said that Kyle probably wouldn't have minded that at all, but now he's got Elliot Dalton-Ayres, so if he moves aside, he's likely to lose 2 places, and then he's only finishing a couple ahead of Warren. Now, Warren being overtaken by Nicky Taylor and Josh Martin is a massive help for him. in this situation. But with Joel Lask and Elliot Dalton-Ayres being teammates, well, actually, we don't know whether they'll end up working together, do we? We theorised this last week and wondered what they're going to do as they go down towards Knickerbrook. It's going to be Dalton-Ayres to look around the outside of Joel Lask. Is that the most sensible thing in the world or the most stupid thing in the world you've ever seen, Andy? Carl Felvis gets a massive, massive break.
Well, I don't think it was that smart, to answer your question. No. Certainly an ambitious move. I think maybe Dalton-Ayres was thinking that since it's his teammate, and he is in more championship contention than his teammate is, that Joel might go easy on him. But Joel Lask has never once gone easy on anyone, let alone a teammate. Just ask Scott Bugner. So I don't think Elliot Dalton-Ayres should be expecting anything other than that, really. They kept it clean, but it's really now hurt them both, because not only has Dalton-Ayres dropped back, but Joel Lask 1.3 seconds now adrift of the race leader Carl Felvis, was 1.2 seconds slower on that lap alone. Meanwhile, Nicky Taylor sits in 4th position, gets a huge amount of oversteer going through Old Hall Corner. Do you know, I enjoyed Vallelunga, I really did, but it's a very smooth, very wide, quite straightforward looking track. It's nice to see the drivers having to work for it tonight, isn't it?
It looks like Nicky is actually sort of quite tensed up, doesn't it, really? He's so sort of normally, I wouldn't say he's relaxed when he's driving, Nicky Taylor, but he always seems a little bit in control. That one seemed a bit like, okay, I'm holding on to this a little bit, struggling. As Josh Martin, probably struggling a little bit as well. Now look at the concentration. Normally he's all fun, he's all jokes and everything, but now he's looking a little bit more tense as he goes through the chicane. It is difficult, Andy. It's one of the best tracks for a reason, and that is because it's so challenging and so rewarding when you get it right. That's why spectators like it as well, because it forces a lot of mistakes, like we've mentioned quite a few times already. But as they go through these sort of complex, you can see Josh Martin, he relaxes, and all of a sudden he sort of tenses up because he knows the bumps are coming. He knows the turning point is coming. As they go through Druids, I'm sure you'll see him just trying to hold on to the car again. There's not going to be much smooth about this, I don't think. Although, to be fair, his turning input there, he just got to the apex of the turn. That was really nicely done by Josh Martin. Very smooth.
You can see there the force feedback that he was having to fight, though, as he turned through that right-hander. That was fascinating stuff. Josh Martin wearing quite a few layers tonight, I think. Was perhaps feeling a bit chilly. If he was feeling the chill at the start of the night, I think he's worked up a bit of a sweat now, working hard to try and gain some ground, but a solid 5th place at the moment. Looks like it might go his way. Ben Smith, meanwhile, after his slightly odd tussle with Paul Laramie earlier on, is now stretching the margin. Laramie, of course, went off at Old Hall Corner, and Ben Smith flirts with disaster coming out of Knickerbrook Corner too. That's not the line to be taking. Paul Laramie taking it much easier, but that perhaps is why he's 5.5 seconds back. That coupled with the grassy moment that he had at Old Hall earlier on. There he is, though. Looks not too bothered by the whole situation. Leans into the corner there at Druids as he tries to carry good speed towards the end of the lap. It's Kenny Press, by the way, up into 3rd place. It was Chris Blakey running in 3rd earlier on within the Caymans, but he's had a drama somewhere, so Kenny Press sits in 3rd position. Now, Kenny has not had a podium yet. In fact, he missed the last 2 weeks. He has a best finish so far of 5th in class, and we do have 7 cars in the Cayman class tonight, so if he can get on the podium in this one, Jack, that would be quite an achievement.
Yeah, it'll be quite nice for him, won't it? It will be, I think Milner has been able to put in a fair few more. He's been in every round, hasn't he? I'm pretty sure. Sam Milner. No, yes, he has. He has, actually. So for Kenny Press to be beating him is a fairly impressive feat, because obviously Kenny maybe not driven the car quite as much as Sam Milner and a few of the others. Here is the battle. Actually, no, it's not a battle quite yet, is it? Because Carl Felvis just getting through some back markers. That's John Jones. It's Joel Lask's attempt to try and catch back up. I wonder what the discussion was between himself and Elliot Dalton-Ayres as they came out and Knickerbrook and through Druids. They have managed to catch up to the back, but they have lost about 3 or 4 minutes there, haven't they, of attempted overtaking time. And I thought, actually, that Joel Lask missed his braking zone. Actually, he's got it pretty much nailed on through Cascades.
The rate at which they've caught Carl, again, I know it took them a couple of laps, but still, they were, well, Joel was best part of a 2.5 seconds back, and look, he's right back with him now, so that demonstrates the speed advantage that the Phoenix Sim Racing drivers got. Rolls into the corner beautifully there, almost up to the back of Carl Felvis' car. If this was NASCAR, I think he'd have tried the bump and run there, but that would very much not go down that well if he were to do it tonight. But again, look, carries the speed. The change of direction there, Jack, you can really see it. Joel's car changing direction so much better than Carl Felvis' car, and that has to be down to the ballast.
Yeah, absolutely. The ballast, and also just the way you hit those curbs. Oh, big moment. He's caught it brilliantly, to be fair to Joel Lask. You can understand why the drivers were potentially, that was a talking point, because it just looked like a very rough ride through there, doesn't it? As they go in towards Druids now, hard on the brakes, down a gear or two. throw it into the first apex, make sure you nail the second apex. That's the more important one. Lovely run off with Joel Lask here. Tell you what, he's driving this superbly. He's even looking at the inside of Lodge Corner. Andy, that's a little bit too far back, isn't it? Something was always going to be tapped around. The problem is you tap around a rear-wheel drive car, they're never recovering, and you're probably going to end up with a penalty, aren't you? But you can see just how quick Joel Lask is. He's absolutely electric as Felvers and the rest of them now catch under a GT4 and a lunge up the inside to Hull and contact with Joel Lask and Carl Felvers as they're stuck behind the GT4.
Oh my word, and the GT4 goes off the road to get out of the way, almost makes contact with Dalton Ayres, but that was a pinch point. I could see it coming. They'd caught the back marker at a really awkward moment, and Felvers was just wrong-footed for a moment. Lask saw his chance, but there was, I think, contact on the apex. Felvers certainly feels there was, because he was flashing his lights in anger there at the race leader, Joel Lask. So Lask goes through, but that may well be discussed post-race. Out of the shell hairpin they go. The question now is whether or not Felvers can come back at him. I think he's going to try, based on that little clip that we saw of him there gesticulating in the car, and he's certainly closing in. It's amazing how if you rattle a driver, Jack, they can sometimes find a bit more speed.
Yeah, well, it's easier to chase, isn't it? I think if we were doing TikToks and we were cutting these up into shorts, it would be quite an entertaining one, that one, wouldn't it? But it is great driving. Well, sorry, it's not great driving. I'd say it's a great spectacle for us here. Elliot Dalton has got a great view of it as well. And to be fair, for the GT4, I don't think he could have really done much. He's told to stay on his racing line. The closing speed and the intensity of the GT3s is not his problem. He needs to stay on his racing line, because if he moved out the way and he accidentally hit one of them massively, then that would have been really bad. It's the fact that maybe Joel Lask sort of tried to take advantage of it and obviously then made contact. If he hadn't made contact, we'd be saying, oh, great opportunistic move. There's the contact. That's the thing that the stewards are going to have to look into, I think, a little bit. But you know what? We'll leave that to them. For now, Carl Felvers is running second. They're both still on the track. They're both still on the circuit scoring points. And for Felvers, that's the most important thing.
Oh, blimey, Felvers is on it, isn't he? I seem to recall you using the exact same words to describe a lunge from the very same driver a couple of seasons ago. It's a recurring theme, isn't it? But, I mean, you've got to go for it. When you see half a chance around here, you've kind of got to go for it. And Joel had seen that back marker coming. They caught it at the perfect place as far as he was concerned. And it was just enough to leave that door open. And now he's gone through. He's starting to pull away. So Joel Lask, who's never been here to make friends, it must be said, he's going to be very, very happy, I'm sure, to now have a chance to pull away out in front. Felvers dropping back slightly and perhaps now becoming a bit more concerned with what Elliot Dalton Ayres is doing behind him. And of course, that little exchange has allowed Nicky Taylor to close in, and Josh Martin within a second of him too. So top 5 cars now almost within the same shot as they round Knickerbrook and head over Clay Hill. 7 minutes of this race still to go, Jack, as well. So there is time yet for this to change again.
I think the thing that looks most likely to happen right now is the Dalton Ayres on Felvers battle, rather than the Felvers on Lask reigniting. If Lask can actually get his head down and put in the sort of time and the sort of driving that he was doing catching up to Felvers, but in the race lead, he should pull away from this one a little bit. But Dalton Ayres latching right onto the back of the gearbox of Felvers, that's going to be the interesting thing. I think it's actually done Felvers a little bit of a favour to drop off Lask, because it might give him a couple of laps to calm down. Because ultimately, he will be annoyed. I can understand why he'd be annoyed. And a driver's worst enemy is sometimes themselves, isn't it? When they get into their own head, especially around a track like Alton Park, and you start overdriving the car.
Exactly, and of course there may yet be opportunities for him to come back at last, because look, there's more back markers now on the road, so every time they catch one of these GT4 Caymans, it presents an opportunity, although on this occasion the car sort of gets out of the way. Sam Milner, is that maybe that they're putting a lap down now, and they head up towards the Britain chicane, and it's Dalton Ayres now who loses out. But this is a factor of multi-class racing, particularly at a place like Alton Park, Jack. You just have to accept that you will lose time in traffic. At some point, you're going to catch a car in an inopportune place and you're going to lose a second, perhaps. There's no point being overly aggressive and trying to force the issue. You've just got to take the hit and hope that the racing gods shine back down on you again a bit later on in the race.
Yeah, it's a skill unto itself, the fact that getting through the traffic. Some drivers can time it perfectly. The best drivers in the world will time it perfectly. If you see the Nürburgring 24-hour or the Spa 24s or anything like that, you'll find that you don't even realize that they're overtaking anybody, because they know exactly where to slow themselves up to time it to overtake people, and they'll see it coming. And obviously they've got people in their ears telling them about where certain drivers are and how far you've got, and then they'll work it out themselves. But yeah, ultimately it's a skill, and it's not just the fastest drivers out there, and if they're getting your way, it's their fault, because it absolutely isn't. They're trying to drive their race. It's up to you to get around them. That's the thing that gets driven home to them on the drivers' briefing, week in and week out. And it's also worth noting that it's not a difference between sim racing and real life racing as well, Andy. You've commentated on the British GT for many years now. GT3s and GT4s get in each other's way. It's just a fact.
It's always a bone of contention, especially at a circuit like Alton, because, yeah, the GT4 cars can't vanish. They've got to go around the corner, and they can't be expected to drive off the road to get out of the way of the GT3s. It's down to the quicker cars, the drivers of the quicker cars, to make the overtake safely, and you've sometimes just got to accept that you're not going to get past them as soon as you catch them. You're going to have to sit behind them for a corner or two and just take the hit. But that little knot of Cayman traffic that they did just pass has actually had the effect of slightly separating now this leading group. The lead gap over a second now between Lask and Felvis. Felvis is then 3/4 of a second clear of Elliot Dalton-Ayres. And actually, that's the closest battle now, really. Dalton-Ayres and Taylor, third and fourth, running almost nose to tail. So Nicky Taylor just sort of slowly but surely starting now to arrive at the party. It might be a bit too little too late, but if he gets a whiff of a podium here, Nicky's going to want to take it, because remember, he's only 2 points clear of Dalton-Ayres in 5th place in the points. So that's quite a significant battle, actually.
It is indeed, yeah. I was just actually having a look at, while you were sort of talking about that, I was having a look at Jay Warren. Where's he gone, sort of thing. But he is in 6th place still. His lap before, I think he's struggling with inconsistency. So the lap he's just finished was a second slower than Josh Martin, but the lap before he was 8/10 quicker than Josh Martin. So he's very much struggling with the consistency as it stands, and is therefore sort of stuck in 6th position. Sorry, just as I'm hiccuping as I'm talking, which is always helpful as a commentator. Yeah, so I don't know whether it's because of the traffic. Maybe that's why he's lost 2 seconds on that lap, but ultimately he's not really in any position to make any kind of move.
No, not for the time being. This gap coming down, though, and so Carl Felvis is going to have maybe a bit of defending to do yet before the end of the race. Dalton-Ayres again getting much better exit speed there from the Britain chicane, heads over hilltop, drops down into Knickerbrook corner, past the entrance to the Knickerbrook chicane. It still looks slightly jarring, that, doesn't it, for people who aren't used to watching this version of the circuit being used in real life. And then they're in a flash out of Knickerbrook and heading back up over Clay Hill, where Elliot Dalton-Ayres is definitely now starting to become a bit of a problem. Beautiful four-wheel drift there for Elliot going into Druids. Didn't lose too much speed on the exit. Does that now mean he's close enough to have a little sniff up the inside? He's going to look, but Carl Felvis late enough on the brakes. As long as he makes the apex, he will hang on to 2nd place for now. Drifts a bit wide, but these 3, Jack, getting closer and closer and closer by the corner, and we've still got 2 laps left.
Yeah, I think we're starting to understand what Carl Felvis meant when he came in after qualifying and said that he pulled that lap out the bag, because I don't think he has the consistent lap pace to really be a pole sitter, but he had the 1 flying lap, and that's all that counts in qualifying, so fair play to him. But in the race, it's a lot more difficult. If you're going to put in a qualifying performance like he did, Alton Park is the place you want to do it. If you do it at Donington or something like that, you're probably going to get overtaken within 3 or 4 laps. He's got a lot better chance at holding on to the position. And if it wasn't for that, obviously, backmarkery sort of issue and the contact potentially, then he may well be on for a race win right now instead of 2nd place. But 2nd is still not bad when, in terms of championship competitors, all a lot further behind him.
Dalton-Ayres throwing it through Britons, and look, Felvis had a bit of a snap of oversteer, so Dalton-Ayres couldn't be any closer. Now he tried the outside down here on his teammate earlier on in the race, tries to get to the outside from the inside, that's not going to work. And Carl Felvis will hang on. Dalton-Ayres now, he's the one with the snap of oversteer, and that means Nicky Taylor starts looking interested in snatching 3rd place away from him. This might be Carl Felvis' salvation, actually, if Nicky Taylor starts distracting Dalton-Ayres, who again sends it into Druids. Full commitment there, but Nicky Taylor is on the attack.
Well, we know Nicky's not shy about going forwards, is he? He's going to have a look if the opportunity arises. He loves a little bit of a move, doesn't Nicky Taylor? And he'd always like to get into the commentary box and tell us about it afterwards as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. We do end up having a chat with him, or Elliot Dalton-Ayres, or Josh Martin, if it all goes horribly wrong, of course, a little bit further back. But at the moment, Dalton-Ayres, he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. He's looking forward. He wants to move as Ben Smith is forced out the way by Joel Lask. To be fair, I remember being quite slow in the GT4 Super Cup, and we had, oh my God, who won the championship that year? Very quick driver, races for Porsche now. Harry King. fly through me and not kill like I wasn't even there, sort of thing. He would just dive me and he just moved me out the way. And he didn't lose any lap time, and that's the way that drivers do it, isn't it? It's the forceful nature of timing when you're going to do it and being decisive about it. That's exactly what Joel Last just did.
No, but Carl Felvis, I think, is about to lose some lap time because he's caught Ben Smith at the worst moment. Look, on the exit of Britain's again, so he just about got away with it, but it has bunched them all together as they head down to Knickerbrook for the final time. As Dalton Ayres going to try and get up the inside. Surely not, he's too far back. Is he going to try and get to the inside line? He has!
No.
Door-to-door contact, and through will come Nicky Taylor, surely. Felvis out onto the grass, surely. He didn't manage to close the door on Taylor. I think he almost did, but no, Taylor has the run, and Nicky Taylor has gone from 4th to 2nd, just like that, but now he's out wide. Dalton Ayres back on the inside. Felvis stuck in the middle. This is an absolute barnstorming battle for 2nd place. Joel Lask is going to get the win, but the championship leader could find himself off the podium altogether. Out of Lodge Corner goes Joel Lask. It's been a fighting drive for him, and he will claim the victory here at Alton Park. Nicky Taylor a sensational 2nd, and Dalton Ayres is 3rd. Elliot Dalton Ayres gets himself back into 3rd position, and Felvis is